Well, good morning. Any day we can invest in our people is a great day for Illinois. Thank you for joining me as we celebrate passage of yet another historic budget for this state. For the sixth consecutive year, I will sign a balanced budget that continues our state's fiscal progress while putting money back in the hands of hardworking Illinoisans. I want to take a moment to thank the many members of my own governor's staff who work tirelessly with me to craft a balanced budget and then work with the General Assembly to get it over the finish line. Deputy Governor Andy Manar and First Assistant Claire Lindberg from our Budget and Economy team. Our Budget Director, Alexis Sturm. Emily Miller, who leads our Legislative Affairs team, and my Chief of Staff, Ann Caprera. These are just some of the unsung heroes of this process, and I am truly grateful to have all of them by my side fighting for Illinois families. The FY25 budget is another demonstration of the fiscal responsibility that has guided me from day one of my administration. The rainy day fund that was once near zero will see a nearly 10% increase and is now on track to reach a record $2.3 billion. Our state's pension funded ratio is headed for another positive improvement. The state's accounts payable is near a 21st century low, and nearly all of our short-term debt has been eliminated. Overall, our fiscal foundation is getting stronger every year, as evidenced by 9 credit upgrades from independent evaluators and the narrowing of our credit spreads since I took office. That means we pay less when we borrow. The purpose of government isn't just to balance the budget, though. But we can't invest in people and in the future of our families unless we balance the budget. And that's why we must. And as a result, we have lowered the tax burden on everyday Illinoisans and improved services and supports that are most needed. We started with our children and families, focusing on the areas most essential to them to thrive, like childcare, education, healthcare, and housing. This budget was designed to make them more affordable, and more accessible. Building on the success of the first year of the Smart Start Illinois program, we put an additional $400 million into preschool access, childcare, workforce, early intervention, and home visiting programs across Illinois, all of which will be eventually housed within our new Department of Early Childhood. We put nearly $500 million more into improving the quality of our K-12 public schools, continuing our march toward educational excellence with record reductions in teacher vacancies and increased support for career and technical education. We also reached a record investment level for community college and university scholarships and grants, with $761 million dedicated to AIM High scholarships and MAP grants. Making certificate and degree programs more affordable is increasing the number of people seeking a college education and paving real paths to opportunity for thousands of Illinois students where none had existed before. We put $290 million into addressing homelessness and making housing more affordable in the long run, including $75 million in rental assistance as a lifeline to those struggling to make ends meet. We launched an important birth equity initiative aimed at closing gaps in maternal mortality between Black women and other new parents. It invests in birth centers and providers in underserved areas. It expands home visits and establishes a pilot for parents who cannot even afford diapers. Education, healthcare, housing, childcare. These are some of the most important issues at the top of mind for Illinois families, and this budget goes a long way toward addressing them. We've also deepened our commitment to driving economic opportunity in Illinois and creating even more well-paying jobs. It continues investing in public infrastructure that's providing the foundation for businesses reinvesting in Illinois and making us their new home. We created new incentives and small business tax cuts that will continue our progress in attracting private sector investments, and we set aside matching funds to aggressively compete for federal dollars that will make our business climate even more attractive. This budget promotes development in a wide array of industries: electric vehicles, clean energy, sustainable aviation fuel, advanced manufacturing, and film and TV production. It creates a quantum computing campus to build toward making Illinois the undisputed leader for an industry that can supercharge our economic growth. This budget builds on years of economic momentum that is revitalizing communities up and down the state of Illinois. We are on a trajectory of sustainable long-term growth, and this balanced budget boosts us further in the right direction. We achieved all this while putting money back in the pockets of everyday Illinoisans. Affordability is a deep concern for working families, so our budget reduces their everyday costs while providing direct, much-needed financial support. That starts with tax cuts. Millions of working households with children under 12 will receive the first ever Illinois Child Tax Credit, as much as $300. That amounts to $50 million in total that we're giving back to folks who need it most. This budget also maintains an increase in the standard deduction to make sure that we preserve every potential dollar of relief for household budgets. We eliminated the state sales tax on groceries, which helps every Illinoisan deal with the effects of higher prices in the checkout line and keeps food on the table. And we are extinguishing nearly $1 billion in medical debt for more than 300,000 Illinoisans. Our tax cuts, debt reductions, grants, and scholarships are providing breathing room and support when people are feeling the pinch of inflation. The hardworking people of Illinois deserve every bit of support that we can provide. Bottom line, the budget is balanced, fiscally responsible, pro-family, cuts taxes on workers, and opens up doors of opportunity for employers and employees alike. I'm very proud to be able to sign this budget today and look forward to working together to bring these investments to life in a healthier, more prosperous Illinois. It's now my great pleasure to introduce our terrific Speaker of the House, Emanuel Chris Welch. Chris.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
It is truly an honor and a privilege to be here with all of you. It's a beautiful day to stand here with my colleagues to watch our governor sign our 6th consecutive balanced budget into law. You know, I am quite sure that's pretty historic to say here in Illinois. Our 6th consecutive balanced budget being signed into law today. You know, we knew going into the start of the year that this was going to be a tougher budget than in the previous years. You know, that's why in January, when we returned to Springfield, I gave our caucus a book written by author Simon Sinek called The Infinite Game. I believe that book was going to help us set the tone for what was going to be a tough few months ahead. In The Infinite Game, as Sinek explains, our goal is always to make things better. Our goal is always to get better. Always strive to leave our state better than we found it. It was not easy getting there, but I do believe this budget continues to make Illinois a great place to live, work, and play. This budget cuts debt, saves for our future, and improves Illinois' credit, all while making smart investments that will benefit future generations. Through our budgeting process, the House, the Senate, and the governor's office worked collaboratively. We worked line by line and found $75 million in efficiencies that allowed us to cut the cost of government to invest in the resources our communities and hardworking families value. We created that $50 million child tax credit to help our most vulnerable families. We've eliminated the state grocery tax while also providing historic support for local governments. We've continued in our goal to provide true cradle to career education a true cradle-to-career education system. Through the Smart Start Initiative and increasing funding for early childhood education, we've created new opportunities for 5,000 of our youngest learners. And again, we're expanding access to MAP grants, providing 140,000 students with a true pathway to affordable college education. In this budget, we're prioritizing health care, specifically millions to address maternal mortality, improve outcomes for women and babies, and fund community-based health centers. This budget is truly a reflection of the values that Illinoisans have. As Seneca said, progress is fueled by the undying belief that the future is bright. When you read this budget, the future is definitely bright. It took a lot of good faith negotiating and difficult conversations to get to this day, but I'm proud to stand here delivering on the promises we've made. I want to thank Governor Pritzker, Senate President Harmon, and their staffs for the collaboration and the work that was done. I also want to thank our House Chief Budgeteer, Leader Jahan Gordon Booth. I want to thank our new Research and Appropriations Director, Indra Curry, her budget team, our House staff, my Chief of Staff, Tiffany Moy. I want to say happy birthday today to our Legislative Director, Kylie Kelly. This is a present for you, the signing of a budget. Thank you for helping us deliver it. And to all of our team, thank you for your dedication to Illinois. Our team went into every single meeting advocating for our priorities, and they really deserve a great deal of gratitude. I also hope they're enjoying a little bit of rest as well. In this infinite game we're playing, Illinois will continue to get better because of another responsible and compassionate, balanced budget. Thank you to everyone who had a hand in getting us here today. Especially thank you to my friend and our next speaker, Senate President Don Harmon.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Governor. I want to join in the chorus of thank yous to the staff members of the Senate, the House, and the Governor's office for all the hours and effort that go into a successful session and a balanced budget. It could not be done without you. In my time as Senate President, I've learned the most important thing I can do for the budget is to empower a smart and experienced budget negotiator, and there's no one in the building with more experience in the budget than Senator L.G. Sims. So, Senator Sims, thank you for that. There you are. Through collaboration and recognition of shared goals, we've now produced 6 straight responsible, balanced budgets that reflect the priorities of the people of this great state. We invested in education at all levels and increasingly look to put resources into early education. We put millions towards ending homelessness and addressing other long-standing issues facing our communities. We eliminated the state grocery tax and, as the Governor said, enacted a real tax cut for many families through the increased standard deduction. And there are real dollars in this budget for young people via summer jobs, youth employment, and violence prevention programs. This is a budget that is built on making a difference. At the same time, we honor our commitments and continue to responsibly pay down our debts and improve our fiscal credibility. And today, Illinois is stronger than it ever has been. Over these past 6 years, we've overcome unprecedented challenges to truly turn around Illinois and set a course for a better tomorrow. I'm proud to be part of the ongoing partnership with Speaker Welch and Governor Pritzker that makes this accomplishment possible. Thanks to all of you for your work on this, and I'm going to turn the microphone over to our budget negotiator, Senator L.G. Sims.
Well, good morning. Let me also add my voice to the thanks of the staff. As Senate President mentioned, we have an amazing staff who oftentimes go unnoticed, but they are the true heroes of the budget making process. Let me say at the outset, congratulations to Aaron Holmes, who's getting married on Friday. I want to make sure we give him an early wedding present. But also to Chelsea Stex, who's my legislative assistant in Springfield, who is indispensable in the work that I do in the Capitol. But also for our legislative teams in our district offices, who make sure that we are able to be prepared as we go to Springfield. But I also couldn't stand here without thanking Senate President Don Harmon for his faith and trust in me to lead the budget negotiations on behalf of our caucus, but to pass a budget that is in the best interest of taxpayers across Illinois. This is not a budget that is for the nearly 8.5 million Illinoisans represented by the Senate Democratic Caucus, but it's a budget for the more than 13 million people of the entire state of Illinois. It represents all corners of our state, all corners of all issues and all interests of our state, and we want to make sure that we are investing in all Illinoisans who call all people who call Illinois home. This budget is responsible, it's compassionate, and it's forward-thinking. It focuses on paying our bills, focuses on making investments in our pension payments, but it's also compassionate. It cuts taxes for the most vulnerable. We eliminate the grocery tax. We make sure we have a child tax credit to put dollars into the pockets of Illinoisans who desperately need them. But it also cares for our most vulnerable. Allows for $1 an hour wage increase for direct service providers, folks who take care of our most vulnerable citizens. But also it invests a $1 an hour wage increase for CCP workers. Again, investing in focusing on those who are our most vulnerable. This budget, but it's also, in addition to being compassionate and responsible, it's forward thinking. Because we are never going to go forward looking in the rearview mirror. We had so many who criticized the budget in this process and who are willing to engage in racial politics and the politics of division when we are trying to bring people together and build each other up. That's what this budget does. It prepares us for the next generation. It allows us to focus on where we are going, not only where we've been. 6 consecutive budgets in a row, balanced and on time. That's led to 9 credit rating upgrades and an economy that tops $1 trillion. Illinois is on the right track. Don't let anybody tell you anything different. The reality is we are making the investments necessary to grow our state's economy, but also make Illinois a better place for those who live, work, and call Illinois home. I'm so proud of the work we've done, but I'm also proud of the team that we've been able to work with together. Governor's team, Deputy Governor Menard, Governor, I appreciate you mentioning him, and Claire and Alexis Sturm, but I could not do the work that I do without my partner in progress, the leader of the House Democrats budget negotiating team, Leader John Gordon Booth, who is a stalwart and a staunch advocate on the least of these, who stands shoulder to shoulder with me as we try to make sure we have a budget that is responsible, balanced, and invest in our communities. So I want to bring next to the podium my partner in progress, Leader John Gordon Booth.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
You won't catch me being the only person who doesn't thank staff. So I'd also like to take a moment and provide a very heartwarming thank you to the members of the Illinois House's staff, led by none other than Indra Curry, who came into this process right before the governor's budget address and really hit the ground running. Her and her entire team worked tirelessly. Oftentimes, when I would get there in the morning, they were already there, and I'd leave at night. Oftentimes 12, 1 o'clock in the morning, they were still there. So I want to give them a great deal of gratitude for all their work. The Senate staff, I would be remiss if I did not thank the individual who's entrusted me with the ability to represent the great 78, Speaker Welch. Thank you for your belief in the ability for me to be able to get this job done on behalf of our caucus. The governor, again, this is my 3rd governor that I've worked with, and none of them has been as good as Governor Pritzker. So thank you for your leadership. The team that worked on the budget, Deputy Governor Menard, who used to be Senator Menard, we have been in a lot of good trouble together, and being able to work on this budget was also a great memory that we'll be able to continue, because the work that we've done in collaboration with both chambers and the governor's office is really about centering Illinois for the future. As a mother who has to balance the checkbook every day for my home, being able to do it for the grade 78, I'm gonna tell you, it's a little bit harder, but I will tell you that it's no different when you have the perspective of what it means to make decisions and make choices and you live with them. This by no means was an easy budget, but this is a good budget that invests in families all over the state of Illinois. When you think about the fact that most of the young people in this state have the ability to attend community college, almost free of charge because of the investments that we make in the MAP program. That is a game changer for not just families, but those young people who have decided to make Illinois their home, because we know that when people stay in their home state to go to college, they typically make their lives in that community. The significant investments that we have made in MAP is helping to build our workforce for the future. You're going to continue to see a theme. We are investing not just for today, not just ensuring that we have balanced budgets, ensuring that we are keeping the trains on time and keeping the lights on, but we're making investments for the future, which is why you see so many of the companies that you see investing in Illinois, because they see us making investments in initiatives like the workforce equity initiatives that is literally lifting people out of poverty, giving them the ability to get the buildable credentials to then be able to go into the workforce, to then have the credentials and the accommodations to then be able to go into those high-skilled manufacturing jobs, to be able to go into nursing programs, to be able to be all that they can be. We are making those investments not just in today, but also in tomorrow. This budget is one that, again, as a working mom, I know how important the child tax credit is for families looking to live and grow in Illinois. I would be, again, remiss if I did not bring up the $10 million investment that was a part of the governor's introduced budget. That $10 million investment is going to net over $1 billion of debt relief from medical bills that families have across this great state. And let me tell you, for those that may have never had to deal with a chronic illness, or like myself have a child with chronic illness, when you get those 5-figure medical bills, it takes your breath away. So the fact that we would have the ability as a state to make that kind of investment in our families in this state, it is something that we all can be proud of. I know that I'm proud of this budget that we have worked on. We have a lot of work to do, but we are at a great marker. The perspective that I have from some of the budgets that we have passed in this state, we are head and shoulders above where we have been, and we are making great strides to be where we want to go, to go to where we want to be. I would be remiss if I did not also mention that this happens to be Gun Violence Awareness Month. This budget makes significant investments from Chicago to Cairo, from Pembroke to Peoria, in ensuring that our communities are safer because of the investments that we're making in programs like youth employment, programs that we're ensuring that we're investing in like violence intervention, violence prevention. These kinds of concepts, after school programming, these are the things that when you see safe communities, you see a plethora of these kinds of concepts along with economic opportunity. This budget is a reflection of all of those things and so much more, which is why I am proud to stand here today with my colleagues to tell the entire state of Illinois and all of its residents that you will see yourself evidenced in this budget. There is no greater person to work in partnership with my former colleague, now the Lieutenant Governor, who has an incredible portfolio of agencies as well as programming like R3 that helps to lift up communities that were once left behind. With no further ado, please welcome Lieutenant Governor Juliana Stratton to the podium.
Thank you, Leader Gordon Booth, not only for that welcome, but also for your leadership and spirit. Hello, everyone. I'm Lieutenant Governor Juliana Stratton, she, her pronouns. I will echo the appreciation that has been shared to Speaker Welch, Senate President Harmon, Leader Sims, and of course, Leader Gordon Booth, and all of our partners in the General Assembly and staff. Thank you for the long hours and hard work. I am more than proud to work by your side. To the architect of this new chapter, Governor Pritzker, thank you for your wisdom, your voice, and your determination. Thank you. You know, I decided to enter public service at the state level in 2015 when my representative co-signed a declaration that Illinois was going to cut child care, slash home care for seniors, and gut social safety nets. Something clicked. The vision he was painting for Illinois' future did not align with the vision that I had for my daughter's future. And so a new vision for my own future came to be. When I was elected to represent the 5th District, I walked into what can only be described as a frigid impasse. No budget existed, and the word balanced wasn't even on the horizon. So to be standing here just a few years later, celebrating our 6th consecutive balanced budget, I'm struck by a few reflections. One, what a difference a governor makes. 2, good government doesn't have to sacrifice compassion to be fiscally responsible. In fact, that harmony is what makes it good. 3, when we build systems to support families, we support our future. Children raised by parents who know someone is looking out for them will then go on to look out for others. 4, our most vulnerable populations carry some of our most potent wisdom. And 5, behind every number, every dollar sign, there is a person. We didn't just make ends meet this session. We made strategic investments to support our collective longevity. With his signature, Governor Pritzker is feeding children, combating homelessness, fighting against a profit-driven healthcare system, and so much more. Today, I am reminded why I took that first step. This is the kind of future I envision for Illinois. Thank you, and with that, I'll welcome Governor Pritzker back to sign our 6th consecutive balanced budget. Thank you.
Should we get our budget negotiators in here? One more set of pictures. You guys step back a little bit here. There we go. Great. All right. Thank you. Well done.
Appreciate it.
Happy to take questions from members of the media. Jeremy.
Hey, Governor. Obviously, we signed the budget today, but there's other budget-related items that are waiting, such as the revenue package, for example, that hasn't been signed yet. There's been some pushback, related to this prohibition on the interchange fee, the revenue package, of course, had a hard time passing through the House. It took 3 tries. Do you foresee, even like us supporters of people against this prohibition, the interchange fee, would like to see it vetoed? Do you have a message for those critics, or do you see any changes to this before taking it up or before signing it?
I don't foresee any changes. I intend to sign it. The bill hasn't been enrolled and passed over to me for signing. That'll happen before June 30. And I will say that the interchange fee issue, certainly something I think, we're always willing to discuss, revisit, have a conversation about. There's time to do that through the rest of the year. And, you know, I'm happy to listen to them, but they really, as far as I am aware, they had very little to do with, you know, the fact that there was a late night session, and, you know, the budget and all the other bills passed as was expected. Yeah, Isabel.
What do you make of Comptroller Mendoza's comment that she would like to have seen across the board budget cuts during this budget?
Well, I want to remind all of you that the across-the-board budget cuts, this idea is not an idea that Democrats believe in. This idea that you can just go across the board and cut 5% of the budget and not have a very deleterious effect on people all across the state. I'm willing to talk with anybody about good ideas for how to tighten up our budget, to make sure that we're being efficient and spending money well and making cuts. Happy to talk about all that. But you've got to have specific ideas, because this idea that you're going to cut across the board, what do you want to cut? You want to cut education by 5%? You want to cut health care across the board? What is it exactly that you want to cut? So it's easy to make these proclamations, usually Republicans make, about across-the-board cuts.
Speaking of specifics, what do you think about Rep. Crespo's proposal for a hiring freeze and 10% operations?
Always happy to discuss these ideas. He did not bring those ideas to the governor's office. Remember, I introduced the budget in February. If Representative Crespo wanted to discuss that, I'm open for business anytime to sit down and discuss with him how we might have made changes in the budget. He didn't raise those. It was something that just got thrown out at the very end. And once again, a lot of that are talking points that really I don't share the idea with, and I don't think most Democrats agree with. Yeah, Amanda.
Thank you. Could you speak about what happened with your pension proposal? That's part of the budget address, and you said your priorities all got passed, but that wasn't part of it. What went on? And is it going to?
Yeah, I think like everything that gets introduced in the General Assembly, you know, it has its moment. And I've had lots of conversations with folks in the General Assembly about that. And I expect that we will be taking up that pension reform idea, which I think is an excellent idea. It will help us to pay off our pensions to 100%, not to 90%. And to make sure that we get credit rating upgrades and that we're being fiscally responsible. So I think it will get taken up by the General Assembly. I certainly will make sure that it gets a hearing, and I expect that we'll be able to do something that will put us in even better fiscal shape than we already are in.
And could I also, actually, Senator Sims, you talked about in your remarks, you said racial politics were part of this discussion. Can you expand on what you meant by that, or what that holdup was?
Sure. No, there were folks during the debate on the Senate floor who wanted to talk about and bring up the issues of black Illinoisans. I thought that was underhanded to try to use the pain of black people as a talking point. Certainly not when the same person who made the statement does not vote when members of the Black Caucus bring issues to the floor in the House and the Senate, both their time in the House and in the Senate. When the members of the Black Caucus bring issues to the floor, I have not seen their vote on those bills. So to bring those topics up, I thought it was underhanded. But that's why when you see investments in this budget, you don't just see investments in black communities. You see investments in all communities. That's why this budget. That's why I call this budget responsible, compassionate, and forward-thinking, because it doesn't just look at the past. It looks at where we're going. It looks at the future.
The off topic, but our reporting at CNI shows students dropping from the school system at an accelerated rate, with some of them going to homeschools. Educational officials say that the kids in homeschools aren't receiving an education at home in some cases, and in the worst cases, they're being abused. Do you think more needs to be done to regulate or have oversight in homeschools?
I haven't read the report. I did see a notice of it this morning, but obviously, you know, I think we should be making sure that every kid, every child in Illinois is getting a good education, whether that's in a homeschooling environment, a private school, or a public school. And so those are things that we ought to be looking at if there are, and certainly if, as I hear you saying, there are abuses associated with this, I think that's something that immediately should be looked into.
Governor,
Yeah.
could you address, critics say that Illinois has the highest state and local taxes in the nation, and that they've actually increased 32% since you've taken office. Could you address that?
We do not have the highest state taxes in the United States. I'm responsible for the state. We do not have the highest state taxes, and indeed, we spend about, on a per capita basis, about 20th among the 50 states on a per capita basis. So our spending is not out of line. And we do, I think, an excellent job of making sure that we're addressing the challenges that are facing everyday Illinoisans. And you heard about the tax cuts that we put into this budget to make sure that we're addressing affordability, especially now as people have experienced inflation in the last few years, and as inflation still hasn't gone below 3%. It's at about, as I understand, about 3.2%. I think that's just bad information.
And what about the reliance on gaming and increasing those gaming taxes? Some are critical of that.
Well, all I can say is that if you look at all of the states that have legalized sports gaming, that the taxes that are imposed on sports betting companies among the most significant of those states, let's take New York, which is top of the heap, those taxes are 51%. Now, there are people who say that there will be sports betting companies that will get up and leave Illinois if we go to, what balances out at about 35%. It's a graduated system. That sports betting companies would leave. They're not leaving New York. And they're not leaving the other states that have. We're the third largest sports betting market for sports betting companies. And we had a much lower tax rate than many of the largest of those markets, and we're just kind of bringing ourselves more in line, but at a lower rate. Yeah.
So, Governor, some of those video gaming operators have said that they might reconsider doing operations in Illinois. Have you talked to any of those people during this budget discussion or after? And then is there a backup plan should any of those leave Illinois?
I have not spoken with them after the budget passed or during the process, and all I can say is that, as you recall, we increased the number of video gaming terminals that were allowed in any given location from 5 to 6. That increases the total potential revenue for them by 20%, and all we did was increase the VGT to 1% more.
This is a little off topic too, but as someone who has talked about the fiscal impact of the migrant crisis and the problems at the border, can you say what you think of President Biden's executive order aimed at slowing the flow and turning people back?
Look, all the solutions that have been discussed over the last year are imperfect solutions. There needs to be a solution, however, and it should be a bipartisan one. I think we need comprehensive immigration reform. But there was a bill earlier this year that Republicans and Democrats came together on, and that President Biden was willing to lead, that would have provided more border security, would have cut the number of people who are coming in as asylum seekers, and done a better job at the border. Even though there wasn't comprehensive immigration reform in it, there were some reforms. And again, everybody was compromising. I think if you listen to Republicans back then and Democrats back then, it's just a few months ago, everybody felt like it wasn't a perfect bill, but it would have made a difference. You know what? The leader of the Republican Party, the convicted felon, Donald Trump, he told all the Republicans to walk away because he wants it as a political issue. So he puts politics over country. And in my view, we now have a proposal from the president that is, again, it's not a perfect solution. We'd like the Congress to take action, but the Republican-controlled House is unwilling to do so. There are not enough Democrats to overcome a filibuster in the Senate to take action, and so the president is using whatever tools he has to do what is necessary.
Governor, I know you addressed just after the budget passed what's going on with the PRV and the House not passing that legislation. Can you give us timing on the executive order and what exactly you expect to be part of that, including will there be video and like hearings that people can watch from home?
Yeah, it's been drafted. I actually have seen it. I know we're prepared to put it out. I don't know what day. It may have already come out and we just haven't announced it yet. But I'll just say I've seen our executive order. So, my intention all along has been to provide more transparency and, very importantly, to provide more training for prisoner review board members particularly on the subject of domestic violence.
And then when it comes to the budget, historic preservationists say that there isn't money, and admittedly have not looked through the whole thing, so maybe it's tucked in there, but there isn't money for some of the historic preservation sites that are very dilapidated, falling down. Why not support that? Once they're gone, they're gone.
Oh, I mean, let's be clear. There are a lot of things that I would have liked to have seen done in this budget that there were only limited resources for. But I want to remind you that since I came into office, we have put more money into the Department of Natural Resources and into historic preservation than has been done in quite a number of years. And you've seen that many of those sites have already been renovated. There's more to do, for sure. And I'm sure there is somebody who would point to a site that nothing has yet been done on and needs to be done. And I would like to get to that as soon as possible. Once again, we're, always in every year, you've got limited resources and an unlimited demand. But we're going to do our best to get to every one of those things. Because you're right, the history of Illinois, history more broadly, ought to be preserved.
Governor, can I go back to what you mentioned
Yeah,
about
Craig.
the politics of immigration? What do you say to critics who might look at the timing of the president's executive order and say, this looks like DNC and election year related politics because he's come under a lot of criticism for not doing anything?
Look, President Trump did nearly nothing when he was in office on this subject, and President Biden came into office and actually proposed comprehensive immigration reform. There's only so much that you can do when you've got Republicans in control of or able to block, in control of Congress or able to block legislation in Congress. So remember what I said, which is there was bipartisan agreement on an immigration bill, and that could have gone through had it not been for the interference and negative input of the convicted felon, the adjudicated rapist, who is now going to be the Republican nominee.
But you don't think this looks like election politics?
Listen, Joe Biden's been in office for 3 years. He's tried to do things all along here to address the immigration issue in a way that hasn't been done before. And there are limits, unfortunately, to what the president can do at the border. There are laws on the books that prevent him from doing a number of things that I'm sure that he would like to do. And so this is what he can do. And it's imperfect. It's not what we need. What we need, ultimately, this is the right thing to do now, but what we really need is something much more comprehensive.
Governor, are you monitoring what's going on in Dalton and Thornton Township and the leadership there? Are you concerned? Taxpayers seem very worried. There's chaos at meetings. What can be done? Could you play a role in stepping in some way? What's your take on the situation?
So I've looked at that question, whether the state should and can play a role. The federal authorities, as you may know, are involved and investigating. I've read that. I think that's a public piece of information. There is an investigation that's been called for, and now I know there was a veto that was overridden that will now allow that investigation to go forward with former Mayor Lori Lightfoot in charge of that. I think that those are two pretty good authorities for looking into this, investigating it, and getting to the truth.
And the state, when you did look into it?
We'll support them. Well, we looked at whether we ought to put resources, whether it's state police and their anti-corruption efforts, or asking the Attorney General. The reality is that there are already two pretty significant investigations going on, and so we'll support them in every way that we can. But it's really just a matter of, do you want everybody running over each other in those investigations, or do you want two concerted efforts toward getting the facts?
And then one more on the budget. There's so many that say, now that this COVID money's about gone, is this going to be the last? This didn't seem like it was all that easy to get to this budget. Is this going to be way more difficult next year?
Well, remember that the dollars that you're referring to that came for COVID were dollars that were set aside for one-time use, because we recognized that there was going to be an end to the support that was coming from the federal government as the virus was waning, right, as we were getting past the pandemic. So you should look back, the Senate President, the Speaker, and I wrote a letter that was printed in another publication in Crane's Chicago Business about our intention to make sure that those dollars are invested in one-time expenditures, both to get us past the pandemic and for anything else that might be necessary if there were dollars available for it. And we've done that. And so the challenge of this budget had less to do with that than had to do, in fact, there really isn't, the idea of the federal dollars were somehow bloating or, affecting the state budget. It's true that there were people who received $1,400 checks and they went out and spent it, and there were sales tax dollars that came to every state as a result of that. But the reality is that, as you may have heard by now, this budget that I just signed increased spending only by 1.6% in a world where there's 3.2% inflation. So just take note of that. For all the complaining that I've heard from people about what amounted mostly to a sports betting company increase in tax on people who are already making hundreds of millions of dollars from Illinois. The reality is that this was a good budget. It did the right things toward fiscal responsibility and made the investments that we think are necessary. Yeah, Tina. Oh, no. No.
Is that a sign of division?
No.
You have had more Democrats here?
No, honestly, we didn't invite the rest of the legislature to this, partly because we thought it would overflow, and we wanted to do it here. This was the most convenient place for us to do it. So no, nothing to do with that. No, in fact, there was a lot of agreement. Indeed, these are folks who are leaders of their caucuses, leaders in the General Assembly. So when they're here, they're representing the vast majority of their caucuses, if not the entire caucus. And so I'm pleased to have all of them here representing the rest of the General Assembly. Yeah.
That's the last one.
Okay. All right. Can I take this one? All right, Isabel. Yeah.
Some moderate House Democrats have said you should have saved some of your revenue enhancement proposals for next fiscal year when times will be tougher back to federal assistance and into the impending mass transit fiscal cliff. Why do you disagree?
Well, the mass transit fiscal cliff is absolutely something that should be discussed. It isn't just a state issue, I might add, right? Where the revenue will come from or where the expenditure cuts will come from, those are not just state issues. And we will be addressing those, but we do need, as I have said before, we need the transit agencies to come forward. We need all the best ideas to come forward, question about whether we should be combining the agencies and so on. So I think that's a little bit of a separate question. And then again, the complaints by people that, that they felt like we should have handled the budget somehow differently or saved some of these ideas or whatever. Look, we have balanced the budget every year. We've heard complaints every year after we balance the budget that next year is going to be terrible. You heard that in 2021. You heard that in 2022. You heard that in 2023. You're hearing it in 2024. People say it every year, and you know what we've done? Balance the budget every single year. Thank you very much, everyone.
Don't miss a video. Subscribe to our YouTube channel today for more Central Illinois news.